Hello guys, and welcome back to this week's episode of Book Bestie. I am your host Megan, and it seems to be a common theme now at this point that at the start of every episode I tell you that I'm sick. Because why would I not be, honestly, at this point? But don't worry, I'm working on it. I have vitamins now. I'm like a new person, honestly. Like I've evolved. My theory or my strategy of ignoring it until it goes away, it's not working because it's not going away. So I need to take a new approach, which includes taking cough bottle for one of the first times because I hate it. So I'm working on it, and hopefully we'll knock this on the head and I'll be able to move on with my life from this fucking cold I've had for about 6 weeks now. So as I mentioned, I'm taking cough bottle. I took some about an hour ago, so we're riding a wave of I've got about an hour to film this until I start choking again. I've got my Monster. I've just taken my vitamins. We're ready to go. Like we gotta get this done because it's actually currently Friday. It is February 16th. It is currently Friday, the day this episode is meant to go up. And this is the first time all week I've had a voice enough to do it. So we're trying. For this week's episode of Book Bestie, we are going to be talking about giving books that you DNF'd another shot. So if you don't know, DNF means did not finish. And you can hard DNF something, which means you are never going to touch that book again. Maybe it had a trope that triggered you, or maybe it was just something like a trope that I hate that immediately makes me hard DNF. Cheating. Done for. End of. Will not read the book. Moving on with my life. Or you can soft DNF things, which means you're not in the mood for it at that very moment, but you'll probably go back to it eventually. So a lot of the books on this list are honestly ones that I have personally soft DNF'd and gone back to. Some of them I'm happy about. Some of them I could have lived without them, to be completely honest. I used to find it really, really hard to DNF anything. At the very, very start of my reading journey, I felt like if I couldn't get through a book, I wasn't a good reader. Now, what a good reader is defined by beats me. I have no idea. But to me, I was like, I can't DNF anything. Like, that's such a bad sign. Like, it means I can't read, which is like not true at all. So just again, we have started a book club on Discord. If you are listening on Spotify or Apple Podcast, links aren't clickable in the descriptions of any of the episodes. So you'll have to head over to the YouTube, which is Megan Jor, or over to my Instagram, Megan_Jor, or Book Bestie Pod on Instagram as well. And you will find the link to join the Discord book club in the bio. I need to get a bit better at posting on the Instagram, so if you guys want to head over to @BookBestiePod, hopefully more content is coming for you soon. Also, I have a TikTok, Megan_Jor, so yeah, you can follow over there as well and kind of keep up with the makings of the podcast and random book things that I deem necessary to be on there. But yeah, so let's get into the very first book. The first book I ever DNF'd was actually a series, and it was The Inheritance Game by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. I read almost 50% of the first book, and I wasn't enjoying it, to be honest. Like, at that point, this was very, very early on in me getting back into reading, and I had really only read romance. So having this book that was very YA to begin with, and then also it was kind of a mystery. Like, it did have like a love triangle within it. However, again, I was like hardcore romance. Like, I was like, I need it in every single page. So it was something that I just didn't find very interesting. So if you don't know what Inheritance Game is, it's very similar actually to the movie Knives Out. She basically gets a letter that she is receiving something in this man's will. She has no idea who he is. Her and her sister head to the estate to go kind of find out. And she learns that she is getting everything. All his money, his house, everything. And he has left his family nothing. So the only condition of her actually getting all of this is that she has to remain in the house with the family for, I don't remember, but it was an agreed amount of time. So it was basically like the entire book is he used to always kind of leave like little hidden passageways around the house and little secrets for the family to figure out and stuff. So it ends up being her and two of the nephews of this man that kind of try and figure out why he left everything to her, what is his relationship to her, etc., etc. So that's kind of what goes on within the 3 books. I know that there's a 4th book now, and it's called The Brothers Hawthorne. I haven't read that one yet, but I don't think it's very involved in the story. I think it's a little bit different, but anyway, I just didn't think I was ever going to get back into this book, to be honest. I didn't love, as I mentioned, the YA. It's very YA. I didn't love it. I hadn't really read anything YA since I was like in that age bracket, honestly, when I was younger. So I wasn't really ready for it. And I don't know, I just couldn't see myself enjoying a book of that genre and of that kind of premise. However, there was one day that I was sitting there, and this was when I used to read books on my iPad. And I was there, and it was downloaded onto it. I was bored, had no idea what to read. I was like, let me just finish this book. Ended up loving it, and ended up getting into the entire series and finishing it all within like a month. So, yeah, I ended up really, really liking it. Now, it's very fast-paced. The first little bit of the first book is a little slower than the rest of the books end up being. I feel like it's definitely, I mentioned it before in the Booksums video, that I think it's a really good series to get you out of a booksum because it is constantly moving. Something is constantly happening. It's hard to put the book down because you're always in the middle of something. And I just really, really enjoyed that about it. I am really glad I finished it. You know, I hadn't dipped my toe outside anything romance before. So it was kind of my first experience into that, being reading now, you know. I really loved the first book. I think the second book was my favorite. And then the third book was probably my least favorite. It felt like, to be honest, reading the end of the second book, I was like, how is there a third book? Which is never really a good sign. I feel like it means that sometimes the third book always isn't necessary. There was a lot of things that kind of happened in the third book that I was thinking, this has kind of just been made up to fill the pages. So I didn't love it. But I'm still really happy that I did actually eventually get to the series, and I didn't like just hard DNF it and never go back to it, because I did end up enjoying it. As I mentioned, it's a book series that I feel like I do recommend to a lot of my friends and stuff. I'm like, as long as you go in without expectations that this is going to be some incredible 6-star series, like it's a good series. So the second book that I DNF'd, to me at the time it was a hard DNF, and I was like, I am never going to read anything by this author. Could not stand this book. Done and done. I think I mentioned this in the 2023 book tag video. By a Thread by Lucy Score. I couldn't do it. I love Sarah Caroli. I take all of her recommendations. She is on YouTube, and she also has a podcast called Bookmarked. And I love her. I love her to pieces, and I feel like all of her recommendations, a lot of them I have really, really enjoyed. So when she mentioned this By a Thread book, I was like, I'm so down. And at the time, Things We Never Got Over had been on my TBR for a while. So I was like, I know who Lucy Score is. So I was like, might as well try By a Thread. I genuinely think I got maybe max 20% into this book. Couldn't do it. I'm sorry. They were so immature. Like, ridiculously immature. These characters were, I think she was in her late 30s and he was early 40s. They acted like children. Literal children. I think, actually, you know what? That's rude to children. Children act better than these people did. They were so bitchy with each other. Like, I'm all for banter. I love a bit of banter. This was just like, shut up. It was so annoying. I was like, please. I was like, just stop. I was like, you are so clearly so toxic for each other if this is how you're just dealing with each other in person. So I was like, no, end of. You guys need to move on with your lives. So I just couldn't. I actually really, really hated this book. And I'm usually, as I mentioned, I found it quite hard to DNF at the start. And this book was fairly early on in the year of last year. And I just couldn't. I actually just could not force myself to go through with it. So in the end, I did finish it. I think it was a similar situation with Inheritance Game. I think it was on my Kindle. I was clearing out my Kindle and I was like, you know what, maybe I should give this book a second try. I didn't love it. I didn't hate it. It did get better. It was entirely too long. This book was a really long book for what it was. It was basically, he was a dick and he owned a company. And I think it was like his dad's company or something, or it was a family company anyway. And she used to work in like a pizzeria or something, and he came in and he was an asshole to her, and she like cursed him out in the middle of like her work day. Like, what? And then she got fired. So then the mom was like, come and work at the company, and she did. and yeah, they just hated each other, and then they fell in love. So it was a bit odd. For what it was, it did not need to be as long. I feel like you easily could have cut like 70% out of that book and still got the same end result, to be honest. They had a lot of like back and forth bickering, and to me that was just like, you're solidifying why I think you guys shouldn't be together. So it wasn't like, I don't know, it didn't feel relevant. But yeah, like after reading that book, I was fully like, I'm never going near the Knock 'Em Out series. I don't want to read anything by Lucy Score. I was like, never will I ever touch off one of her books again. Like, if this is how she writes, I'm just not in the mood for it. But yeah, thankfully I did go on to read Things We Never Got Over, and I did really enjoy that book. I've yet to finish that series because I don't love Nash, I think his name is. The brother from the first book, that's the main male character in the second book. So I do want to finish it. As I mentioned at the very start of the year, that my goal is to finish books that have been on my TBR. So I do want to get there eventually, but for now it's just not kind of a big priority for me. Yeah, overall, it's definitely one that comes to mind that I think if I did DNF that fully and like never go back to it, I would be fine. It would honestly be whatever. It didn't change my life reading it. Like, yeah, I guess it got rid of the mental block I had with Lucy Score, but other than that, I really feel like it didn't affect me too much. I could have left it, to be honest. So the next series that I DNF'd is actually the Dirty Air series by Lauren Asher. Now, Throttled was the first book I'd ever read by Lauren Asher, and I had seen her name a lot on TikTok and stuff, and like random book recommendation videos, and I liked the idea of the F1 romance. I thought that was kind of interesting, but I read the first book and it felt so Wattpad-y to me, and like, Wattpad-y is not always a bad descriptive word, it's just sometimes I'm not in the mood for it. And it can be too heavy Wattpad to the point where I'm like, I'm not interested. So I found it kind of like a little bit difficult to get into, I guess. I did finish it and I didn't mind it, as I mentioned. Like, Wattpad isn't something that like makes me completely hate a book and move on with my life. It's just something that you just feel like when you used to spend like most of your teenage years reading Wattpad. It's just a vibe that you get. And it's very hard to kind of like unsee it in your brain. So I kind of thought I would never end up finishing that series, and I actually have a friend who loves F1, and like, to be honest, when I heard this series, I was like, oh my god, she's gonna love it. But after I read the first book, I was like, I really don't think that you should get into it. Like, I really don't think it's that good. I think the first book, now I'm so sorry if I'm wrong, I read this a very long time ago. But it is, the main female character is the sister of this guy who got signed to a big team or something. Please ignore my F1 terminology. I don't watch F1, so I could be very wrong about what I'm saying, so just bear with me. So anyway, she's deciding to go on a bit of their like tour with them. I hope that's not wrong, because I'll sound so stupid. And and she meets the guy who is on the same team as her brother, and they kind of build a bit of a relationship, and he's kind of known as a bit of like a jackass or whatever. He was very jealous. He was a little rude sometimes, like that whole when he's an asshole but it's like too much. I felt like that was at certain points. She was like a vlogger, I think, or trying to make it as a vlogger, so she used to do like little videos around the racetrack. I don't know, I'm so sorry. So yeah, she used to do that and stuff, and she did like a lot of interviews of him, and like she used to do interviews with the other guys from other teams, and he used to go like crazy about them, and she was just like, whatever. So yeah, it just felt very Wattpad-y to me. It was very like brother's best friend, you know, that kind of vibe, and I was like, no, I'm not really interested. But recently I got Kindle Unlimited, and I saw that the rest of the series was on Kindle Unlimited, and I also saw that, what is that book? Love Redesigned, I think. It literally only just came out. It's by Lauren Asher as well. Love Redesigned. Yeah, it's the Lakefront Billionaires series. Oh my god, I forgot she wrote the other series. Okay, so no, I lied. I had read Lauren Asher before. She wrote the Dreamland Billionaires series. Oh my god, I knew I had something wrong. I knew when I said that, I was like, that doesn't feel right. She wrote the Dreamland Billionaire series, which I loved the first two books, have yet to read the third one. That is why I read it. There we go. I've figured out the timeline. Okay. Lauren Asher wrote the Dreamland Billionaire series that I loved. Yes. That is why I read Throttled, because I thought I love her writing. Yes. Okay, I'm back now. I'm so sorry that I got that information wrong. So anyway, read Throttled, didn't love it, thought I wouldn't continue on with it. To be honest, kind of postponed me reading the last Dreamland Billionaire series because I was not really overly enthused at the time about Lauren Asher. Then I read Love Redesigned. There we go. Got the timeline solid now. I'm back. I'm clued in. I'm here. Loved Love Redesigned. I loved it so much. I thought it was so good. The communication between the two characters, so good. So when I had read that book on my Kindle, it obviously recommended the rest of the Dirty Air series to me. And I was like, to be honest, I'm in the mood for more Lauren Asher. Like, that was really good. And that is when I read the second book, which is called Collided. Loved Collided. I loved it so much. I thought it was so good. I loved the main character, Liam. And then the girl character, I don't remember her name. What was her name? Sophie. I loved Liam and Sophie's relationship. I loved the banter between them. Just genuinely, I loved this book a lot. I thought it was an interesting concept. She was raised by a very strict dad. He was a single dad, and he wanted her to basically not end up like her mother. So he had a lot of strict guidelines for her, and she made this list of stuff that she wanted to complete over the summer while going on tour with her dad, who's like some manager level role in one of the teams. Okay, so Liam finds this list anyway, and he is like, I'm gonna help you do it. That's gonna be so fun. And she was like, nope, nothing to do, want nothing to do with racers, like, no thanks. Then eventually, obviously, you know, because there wouldn't be a book without it, she gives in. And they form their own relationship, and it's very cute. I really liked it. I am now currently, I think, about 30% into Wrecked, which is the next one about Jax, and I don't remember her name. It's their PR manager anyway. And I'm very excited. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a lot better than Throttled. I felt like it was a lot less Wattpad-y. It just felt a little less. I don't even know how to describe it. It's hard to describe what Wattpad-y is like unless you've lived it. Unless you've gone through the trenches of Wattpad, you just don't know the vibe. So it's a very hard thing to explain the lack thereof. But yeah, so I'm currently on the third one, as I mentioned, Wrecked. So I'm really excited. I really want to finish the series. I think there's only 4 books total, There's one more called Redeemed, and it's actually about the main girl. In the first one, it's about her brother. So I'm really excited. I really enjoy it. I'm reading them on my Kindle, so I don't currently own them. I do want to get them though. I like the covers obviously without the men on the front, but I feel like that's pretty much duh. Like, why would I? As I mentioned in other podcast episodes, I am a big Destiny Sidwell fan. I take all her recommendations. I love her to pieces. So when she was constantly raving about this book series called Addicted, I thought I'd love it. I was like, I'm so excited. There's so many books. There's like little spin-offs of the sisters, the Calloway sisters, I think it's called. Was so excited. I read the first book of the series. Now, again, very long time ago. And I hated it. Like, I just couldn't stand it. I just couldn't stand the two main characters. I wanted to whack their heads against a wall. I was like, cop on. They pissed me off. I really, really disliked them. And there was honestly not one person in that book that kind of made me go, maybe I'll keep reading for them, because I really disliked all of them. All of them. So I did DNF this book. Now, the entire series as well. So I do want to one day read it. Okay? Love Destiny. Destiny's obsessed with these books. I feel like she always mentions that they get better, but I'm a big believer of like, do I have to sit through 3 or 4 books for a book series to get good? Like, is that really what I want to push myself through? And considering I am trying to be better at DNFing a book if I don't like it, do I really want to do that to myself? Like, even just right, I'm going to read the synopsis for you for this first book. The Addicted to You is the first book in this series. She's addicted to sex. He's addicted to booze. The only way out is rock bottom. No one would suspect shy Lily Calloway's biggest secret. While everyone is dancing at college bars, Lily stays in the bathroom to get laid. Her compulsions lead her to one-night stands, steamy hookups, and events she shamefully regrets. The only person who knows her secret happens to have one of his own. Lauren Hale, best friends in the bottle of bourbon. Lily comes at a close second. For 3 years, they pretended to be in a real relationship, hiding their addictions from their families. They've mastered the art of concealing flask and random guys that filter in and out of their apartment. But as they sink beneath the weight of their addictions, they cling harder to their destructive relationship and wonder if a life together for real is better than a lie. Strangers and family begin to infiltrate their guarded lives with new challenges. They realize they may not be just addicted to alcohol and sex. Their real vice may be each other. Now, I failed to read that before I started this book. I won't lie. I didn't read it. I just went into it. I trusted Destiny, heart and soul. And I just jumped headfirst into this book. I really just didn't like it. Like, I understand addiction is a very powerful thing. I understand it's something that a lot of people struggle with, and it is a struggle. It's a mental thing of having to work on an addiction, and it's something that's with you for life. You know, it's not something that you can kind of get over with and not have to work on constantly. But fuck me, these two. Goddamn. They drove me up the wall. I just didn't like them. Like, I understand that they were struggling with something, but I just did not like them. Like, I just couldn't stand either of them. So, like, everyone says, like, oh yeah, their character growth is insane over the series. But I just don't know if I care. Does that make any sense? Like, I just don't know if it's something that I want to push myself through, because I'm like, do I care? You know? Do I like these people enough to want to see them grow? And to be honest, I really think the answer is no. I think, to be honest, the only reason I would love to continue on with the series is just to read Calloway Sisters, because there was a character called Connor that I think gets at one of Lily's sisters. Lily? Was that her name? I read that 5 seconds ago and I already forgot Lily. Yeah. That gets at one of her sisters, and apparently they're really cute. But, like, I just don't know if I have it in me. Like, I'm not gonna lie. So it's probably one that is going to stay on that soft DNF for a while. I think it's not a soft or a hard DNF. I think it's like a medium. Maybe one day I'll get back to it, but it's definitely not a pressing matter that I'm concerned about in any way, shape, or form. Yeah, I don't know. It didn't get me. I really have to like the characters. Like, that's why one of the main reasons I love Magnolia is because I love the characters. I connected with the characters and I loved them from the second I met them. So I feel like whenever I recommend Magnolia to people, I'm like, if you don't like the characters, you're not going to like the book. Because, you know, they're all based on these people, not necessarily like plot points. So I feel like you definitely need to like these two main characters to actually get into the book series. And I just did not like them. And I can understand their growth and I can respect their growth. But I just don't know if I care enough to continue on. Which sucks because, as I mentioned, Destiny absolutely is obsessed with the series. So watching a lot of her videos, she constantly talks about them. So I would love to be able to like know, but not right now. So that is all for this week's episode of Book Bestie. I hope you guys enjoyed. As I mentioned, we have the book club on Discord. You can join within the links in my Instagram bio, Megan_Jor, or the Book Bestie Pod Instagram. You can subscribe and like on YouTube, please. That helps tremendously. You have no idea. I just want to say thank you as well for all the love and support that I've been getting on the episodes recently. It genuinely means the world to me. It's really, I love doing this, as I mentioned before, and I'm very happy that somebody cares. That's great. Make sure to follow on TikTok, rate the podcast on Spotify and Apple Podcasts as well. That helps a lot. It means Spotify and Apple push the podcast more. Last but not least, if you're an audio listener right now, I'm currently holding up my 2 copies of Into the Dark by Magnolia Parks by Jessa Hastings. And I am so unbelievably excited to get into them today. Would love the next podcast episode to be about them. So if you guys have read them and would like to talk about it or have your opinion shared on the podcast, make sure you join the Discord, and we can talk about it there. I will put in a question once I'm filming the episode, and you guys can let all your opinions be known. I'm really genuinely excited. Like, you guys know how much I love Magnolia Parks, so I'm really, really excited to read it. And I am also very, very upset that it is the last Magnolia and BJ book. They're not 2 people I'm ready to let go of yet, so we'll see how it goes. But yeah, so I hope you guys enjoyed, and I will see you all next week. Bye.